Hello there. Hi. 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 I'm very glad to be with you today. And it's a topic very dear to my heart that goes along the lines of where's God? And I remember when I was a kid, the minister telling a little joke about some two little boys. The parents sent the boys to church. They didn't go to church, but they sent the boys because they thought the boys ought to be in church. The boys decided they're not going to go to church that day. They're going to go out in the woods and play. And they didn't think anybody would notice. So they did notice. They asked the parents where the boys were. They missed them in church, the minister did. And the parents said, well, no, they were in church. So the boys are in trouble. They called them forward. They asked them what had happened. The boys admitted that they went out into the woods and play, and they had to go before the pastor to be taught a lesson. And the pastor brought one of the boys in at a time. And he knew that he had to really get across to them how important it was to go to church and this, that, and the other. And he started yelling. He started just slamming his hand on the desk, going to the one little boy that was in there. And of course, they were already scared to death, these little guys. And all the pastor would say is, where's God? Where's God? Tell me, where's God? And this little guy was just mortified. He was paralyzed. He didn't know what to say. He was just in so much trouble and shock. And the pastor minister just kept saying, tell me, where's God? Where's God? And the little guy just leaped up out of his chair and went running out of the pastor's office. And he ran out through the sanctuary, and his little friend was out there waiting for his turn to be taught this lesson. And he said to his little friend, we're in real trouble. God's missing, and they think we have him. So, where's God? Where's God? So, it's easy to get into life revolving around our woes, our troubles, situations, circumstances, problem solving, strategizing, managing, fixing, explaining, getting more polarized, taking sides, right and wrong, black and white, good, bad, up, down, right and wrong. And if we're not careful, this can get very circular and absolutely nonsensical. Our existence becomes one of what we call normalcy, but it's like we're trapped in an idea of normalcy and there's nothing about it normal, that we keep praying for something. We pray that our illusions will fall away. We pray to know the power, the light, the love, the power, the presence of God. We pray that. While this is being eroded, our realization of this, our relationship of the divine in more ways than one, because we're living in and trapped in a notion of normalcy that's missing this very special liminal and sometimes uncomfortable time in our relationship and our devotional time with the divine. So, what to do then? How to get out of this repetitive cycle to allow ourselves to be drawn in to a sacred space. In a speaker I heard at the Unity Convention this year called the liminal space, a liminal space. This is the place where transformation takes place. This is the place where purification occurs, renunciation, elimination, faith is developed. It's the place where our old world can be left behind, even for glimpses, for just a moment. And even though we don't know what the new world is, we know that the old world is not serving us in some way. These old ways of being is not serving us in some way. So there's a good space where newness can begin, a born again, an awakening, an atonement of that. And we've got to get there, folks. I've got to get there. And I have found I've returned to basics in many ways to dial up my own spiritual practice, my own devotion time, my own contemplation. I'm also using some new doorways, some new approaches, which I've spoken about before in my talks here in ways that I'm doing this myself. And this is my responsibility to be and express this, what I want to see in the earth, to be and express and to create and co-create a world that is what I sing about and pray about and desire to have. And this is a place too where I've got to make sure that I get there more often. And when I get there, I stay a little longer. So I don't just tap in there, but I go more often and I stay a little longer in there by whatever means possible. Prayer, meditation, contemplations, insights, mantra. And actually, I've been able to deepen some of my own prayers, the prayers that I've prayed for years, the prayer of serenity, for example, not just to say the words, not just to say the prayer, but grant me the courage to change what I can. I'll be all about changing what I can today, which is right here, my own thinking, my own belief systems, my own nonsensical way of being with things, my own patterning, to interrupt that. Grant me immediate acceptance of what I cannot change. Changing what I can, accepting what I cannot, and the knowing the difference, the wisdom to know the difference. I've been praying years and years ago, 20 some years ago, I prayed a prayer of Ho'oponopono. Was made very popular, culturally uplifted through a book and some practices by the author about that. It seems like it was Joe Dispenza, I can't remember now. That I thank whatever's teaching me. I thank my parts, the part of me that still has fear, that's afraid, that's worried. I thank it for what it's teaching me. Thank you. I'm sorry that I've not been more present. I'm sorry I didn't pause and listen, that I didn't presence myself to whatever keeps appearing in my life. Thank you for what you're teaching me. And I love you. So this could be to anything that applies to us. It could be to a body part or to a situation, an illness or something. Like I'm listening now. Thank you for what you're teaching me. I'm sorry I've not been more present. I'm sorry I've not listened. I'm sorry I've not heeded attention. I'm sorry I've not paused to hold you, to sit with you. As Rumi says, meet it like it's a guest in your house, a guest house. I'm awake now. I'm more committed to this now. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And not just the words, but a real devotion, a sincere devotional, heartfelt meaning of this. So there is a sacred space. I know you know it. I know you have glimpses of it. I know you have spiritual practices to touch back in there. And today's the day, I hope, for me and you, that we deepen whatever spiritual practice we already have, to go into this sacred space where an old, normal, quote, normal, but painful, stressful, tense-filled world can come apart some or even fall apart, and a bigger world is revealed, a bigger view, a higher perspective. As Eric Butterworth used to say, our part is to get to the part, our responsibility is to get to the part that we can see things from a higher perspective, where something bigger is revealed to us. And if we don't take this time to encounter this liminal space in our lives, even though it's uncomfortable, and stop idealizing the normalcy of an insane, nonsensical world and a way of being in it. So we're at a threshold here, I think, and instead of being in God's waiting room, we're going to go on in. Instead of hanging out in the waiting room and waiting to be called in, we're going to go on in, and where we can experience openness, patience, and we know that we not only can expect an appointment with the divine doctor, that we have a scheduled appointment with the divine doctor, a routine appointment. And for me, I need at least 2 per day. And often throughout the day, I've got to stick my head back in for one more connection with my divine doctor. I believe that our spirituality, our unity teachings are unique in the way that we can use these and approach this, and that they're a necessary function to lead us into liminal space, that we not just say our prayers, but that we embody our prayers, and not to let our religion or our spiritual practices get rote or just a platitude or something like that, and that we absolutely commit to embrace them, to embody them, and to do everything we can to stop avoiding what we don't want to experience, to bring it into our allness, to bring God into the allness, God into the wholeness, and to not get any more kind of egocentric than we are about this, about where's God and where God is not. And I've had some very important life decisions to make around this. Like in the culture, we're more inclined culturally to shut people that are ill and dying away, for example, to put them in a hospital, a nursing home, a facility, or somewhere to spend their final days. And that absolutely is required. It's required for some people and some approaches. And I didn't want to do that with my family. And it was hard, challenging, and especially rewarding. So challenging and difficult, you bet. Rewarding, you bet. And every bit of that was used as I discovered a deeper center of myself, and that there's a center of me that is not me, that is from on high. And I would never have realized that if I didn't accept the challenges and the difficulties with this, and still said yes to it, because that was what was in integrity for me. I do not recommend this for everybody. The same thing that worked for Martha could put you in a psych ward. So don't try to do Martha's way. Do what is honest in your way. So these very fertile liminal spaces changes my perspective. It got me in touch with something that I had not known prior to them. It took me beyond my growth edge, beyond what I had known to be true, and into out of some sleepwalking, out of some denial that I was in, and out of some despair that I routinely felt since I was a kid and still do from time to time. So it took me into a world where I can be more curious and even intrigued by the universe. I won't say enchanted with the universe. I am at times, and there's times that I still feel afraid about what is happening, and that I'm also in touch with a part of me that I'd lost touch with when I'm using even my spiritual practices in a rote way and not taking them deeper and deeper and deeper in. So, where is God? And there's no where with God. No, there's no where. So think about if we change the no where, no where to now here. So God is now here, now here, and reaching for me, encouraging me, open door, divine doctor, full of appointments. So God always is. We will not ever find a separate God that is located somewhere in time and space. God is space. God is time, all time, through and as all things, through and as all situations, through and as all circumstances. And if the word God doesn't work for you, I understand it, absolutely understand it. I just encourage you to find one that would work. Life force, universe, grace is here now, flow, abundance, reality, whatever works, whatever awakens you, and whatever alivens you to find this in embodiment. So, God as my very breath. Wow. God as the life force that's running through my veins, my arteries, my circulatory system, the oxygen. God is the wind. I see the trees move. I really see them move at times. Subtle wind. God is music. God is a sunrise. God is rain. So God is happiness and gladness. God is sorrow too. God in the sorrow, as the sorrow in my heartbreak, in my doubts. God as the awareness that I am actually infinite, eternal, and that I lack nothing. That awareness. As the next pair of eyes I look into, or even imagine that I'm looking into, God is the feeling of peace, the peace that I get glimpses of and desire to know more of, a peace that passes understanding literally. God in laughter, God in tears, God in anger, God in letting go, God in holding on, demanding, willful, attached, God in surrender, stepping back, allowing, accepting, God in the wonder, God in the awakening, God in the courage, God in the fear, God in the heartache, God in the relief, God in the next encounter, God in the next person, God in the now moment, now here, now here, now here, God in the next feeling, God in the next thought, God in the next creation, God in all things, God through all things, God as all things, our basic unity teachings. God is the seed of liberation, the stillness in a storm, the stillness in a situation. Inseparable, the ground of all being, the beginning and no end, no beginning and no end, Alpha and Omega, everything in between, the process and the progress, the one essence, the immanent, the right now, right here, now here, now here, now here. So don't be so distressed, friends, if you cannot find God. Rather realize there is no God to find, no God coming and going, no God separate from life, no God hiding. God is the primordial ground of our being, the underlying fabric of all existence, the fundamental, essential, ultimate reality of nature, the whole, that which is behind and permeates all things. Us too. There's never a moment when anything happens outside of God. Whatever appears within our lived human experience is not outside of God either. So may your heart be less troubled today. May we be less troubled today by our own impermanence, by the impermanence of things, by the temporal nature of things, of our humanness, of the coming and going, our fragility, and the ever-changing nature of the body, the ever-changing nature of situations and circumstances. And may we remember the fundamental essence of all things, including ourselves, is God. We are never separated from this, nor can we be. My deepest, richest blessings to all of you. MarthaCreek.com to contact me.